kick us off by telling us your name and talking about where you're currently living?
Yes, I go by Jay, short for a very long, complicated name, but Jay works. And I'm living in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Excellent. And what about your experience in Colorado Springs made you want to do this interview with us?
Well, I might have a different point of view, and you asked, so I thought, well, why not? I think about things a lot, so maybe that'll result in some intelligent words for someone who might move here, because there's a lot of stuff I picked up over the years that no one ever said to me.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Starting off on a positive note, what are some good things about Colorado Springs that you like?
Okay, it's not the big city yet, so there's still a little bit of the hominess. You've got mountains. If you like the mountains, you got mountains to the west and endless opportunities for outdoor activity. Lakes, hiking, glorious hills, trails. Mountain bikers seem to like it. I'm a roadie, but okay. And I think it's glorious for outdoor activities, seeing nature, the animals, the wildlife. I mean, we have, deer coming through the neighborhood is not uncommon anywhere in town, though somewhat more common to the west near the mountains. And to the east, you have the plains, which I've often just driven out because, the wide open spaces. I mean, it's a Great Plains, good and bad. It's kind of empty, and that's where they had the Dust Bowl. But it's pretty cool. And if you can feed on the outdoors, there's still a pretty good chance to do that without going very far.
Excellent. If someone were to come visit you for the day, is there anything that you would take them to see or recommend that someone visiting just has to go? Anything local?
Sure. Well, you can't miss the Garden of the Gods. GOG, we call it. It's pretty. The rocks are very cool. There's all kinds of, the local guys only know them, paths and stuff that you can find, trails. Much more interesting, but the history there is fantastic, and it's very close by. It's pretty generally well known. Depending on my economics, I should say economics have been tight the entire time I've lived here. So we haven't done a lot of the stuff that people with money, and I know what they are, but I just didn't get to do them. So getting up to Pikes Peak would be pretty cool, either driving or taking the Cog Railway. Those would be a couple big ones. Probably end up in Manitou, depending on the kind of person and the weather. It might be a couple of different places too.
Nice. On the flip side, are there some things you wish you could change or maybe you wish were different in Colorado Springs?
Okay. Well, yes, and there's a whole bunch, but not to be a complete downer about it. It's gray or brown a lot. The winters are long, like 7 months pretty much feel like winter. The snow doesn't stay on the ground too long, and it doesn't get terribly cold, but you add that to the wind and the altitude. So wind, we got 5 to 10 every day. Doesn't sound like much. Oh man, it's going to get you down. And I've had any number of people who moved here and thought, well, where's all this wind coming from, right? Because partly because there's nothing in the way, or very little. I'm sent off the mountains. We have the same joke everyone else has about weather. I've lived in a whole bunch of other places, and you don't like the weather, wait 15 minutes and it'll be better, right? So we maybe have a better claim to that because you can see it coming over the mountain, but just there, and after that, I mean, we've got Pikes Peak, whatever, it's 30 or 40 miles, as the crow flies, but it dominates the landscape. You can't miss it. And the entire Rockies, the part that is in front of us is called the Front Range, which goes north to south and divides the state. So we got that in the way. So altitude, I have known a number of people who had to leave because of altitude. It can be a real problem for some who cannot breathe. That's it. We're somewhere between 65 and 7,300 feet, depending upon exactly where you live. That can be a real challenge. In the beginning, okay, no big deal. You're going to be short of breath and you're going to be exceedingly dry. You're going to be putting on lotion morning, noon, and night. You're probably going to get nosebleeds. Your skin is just really going to be a problem. So some people struggle with that too. And if you like green, you're only going to get evergreen. and a couple of months in the summer, there's grass and stuff, and then it's gone. So that's kind of the downside of that.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing. So you said you've lived a couple of places before. Where else have you lived previously?
Right. I was born in the Northeast. Dad was in the Navy, so we moved all around. Southern family from Tennessee. So spent a fair amount of time in California, in Southern California, east somewhat, in Redlands and San Bernardino area. Sometimes pretentiously called the Inland Empire. Then the Northwest, in the vicinity of Seattle, a whole bunch of smaller towns around there. So I have a pretty good reference point there for about a decade. About actually more than a decade in East LA, which was fascinating, right close to downtown. And a couple of years in Texas, East Texas and Central Texas. So what a variety.
Yeah, I can tell. Which of those would you say was your most like dramatic move?
Wow. Into and out of East Texas.
Mm-hmm.
They're very pleasant people, but they're very different. And I could fit in because I had Southern background a little bit, and enough so I knew what to do. But the rest of my family, mixed ethnicity family, and well, I don't want to be too hard on the folk in East Texas, but let's just say it can be difficult for other races there. Not always and not with everyone, but there were some very, very difficult times there for us. Glorious place, very humid, very hot. But anyway, so that was the biggest challenge was there. It was much better coming west towards the Fort Worth area, if you will. Yeah, and in fact, I love there's Fort Worth and Dallas, pardon me, are right next to each other. And the Fort Worth people are really very much fun because they're saying like the old saying, Fort Worth is where the West begins. Dallas is where the East peters out. So there's a lot of attitude there, but in a pleasant way. So that was the biggest change was into and out of Texas. Though coming here from Seattle was a close second. We actually looked at each other and said, what do I do? Someone in line talked to me. Now what? Am I supposed to answer? So people are a little friendlier here. Still a little more of the country feel. When we moved here 18 years ago, you would still see the ranchers, very thin, very tall, plenty of cowboy hats, and they're just coming into town, right? A lot. That group is slowly dying away and being replaced by, Texans and Californians mostly, city types. So you see a lot more Beamers and Mercedes and stuff like that, and hear a lot more y'alls.
Nice. Do you have any advice for someone who might be making a similarly, significant move at some point in the future?
Yeah, it's true. They say here, if you've got any friends, they're all going to visit in the summer because everyone loves Colorado in the summer. So you need to do that. You need to be here for a little while in the summer, which isn't so bad. 90s around here, not a big deal. Very short growing season though. You need to be here in the winter. Biggest snow time is March, which seems unusual. It's a little warmer then, but snow all over the place. Nastiest for wind and temps would be November, December. You really need to know if you can stand that because we do get blizzards, which is 30 miles an hour and 3 hours solid blowing snow. Not too often. We've had 110 mile an hour winds, which is like a stage 2, what do you call it? Not a hurricane, you know what I mean. But anyway, one of those big names for dangerous stuff. So getting the right kind of roof is a big deal. And I poo-pooed it when I moved here, but because I came from places where stuff grew, but nothing grows here or very little. So I ran a ranch for some years out east and made something go, mainly animals. saying that a neighborhood has mature landscape is a big deal. You're going to wait 12, 15 years for that little tree maybe to survive and be a big tree. When I had a ranch, I planted 125 trees a year for 3 years, and 2 of them lived. So it's rough out here. It's very rough.
Wow. With all that in consideration, would you recommend someone else move to Colorado Springs overall?
In general, it just depends. If you like the outdoors, okay, that's a big plus. But keep in mind that the skiing is 2.5 hours minimum. All right, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, skiing, woo!" Okay, well, that's true, but it's a long way away. But if you like the hiking and the fishing and the hunting, rock and roll. It's going to be good for you. The people, it's quite a mix, as I said, and they tend to be a little friendlier than the bigger cities. We're going through, however, a lot of growing pains, and the prices have gone insane. So I'm thinking we have done in California. Okay, that's whatever. They've done that forever. You know, you're assuming a percent or two a month every month forever, and that started happening here in the last couple of years. So a house that was 300K was 500K 2 years later. That's huge. So finding, and there are plenty of nice neighborhoods. Unfortunately, partly because, no offense to them, I mean, they got houses that are worth $1 million now in California. They're thinking, whoa, 500,000, 600,000, cheap house, you know, take money out. So there's plenty of neighborhoods that are way expensive, and it's making it difficult for people to live here. I could not afford to buy in here and live here unless I really wanted to go way, way down in terms of quality of the neighborhood. I'm in kind of the north side in the area called Briargate, and it's, if you can get into a little bit nicer area like that, and obviously that's up to you, right? But wherever you want to live, but that makes a big difference in how the city presents to you. And we do have connections to everywhere. If you like the idea that you can get to almost anywhere in the West in about 6-8 hours, you can get to Cheyenne in 3, you can get to Utah, Salt Lake in 6 or 8, you can get to the southwest corner of the state, Durango, and all the great stuff there, Four Corners, in 6-ish or so. You can get to the Great Sand Dunes National Monument, which is amazing in the middle of Colorado. The sand dunes, you're skiing down them, sand. You can get into Texas and all the way to Amarillo in about 6 hours. So there's a lot of stuff not far away in kind of the Midwest. So, and that way, come here, but you better hurry and make sure you know where you're going to live ahead of time, and make sure you're not going to get sick. I hate to see it happen, but certain percentage are just not going to be able to make it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Those were kind of all my questions for today. Do you have anything else to share before we sign off?
Okay, sure. If you're used to fresh anything, rethink, right? Fresh fruit, you go almost anywhere else but here, it's going to be fresher, it's going to be nicer. Okay, so if you're used to that, just remember, it's all that we're the end of all the supply chains. Okay, and the same with fish. So if you're focused on fish, oh boy, that's a long way from anywhere. Except for now, you got game and you got hunted fish and harvested fish and all that, so that's fine. But other than that, no, it'd be we are the melting pot that people used to say we wanted, right? And that's worth a lot. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. It was lovely to get to know you. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you so much. The same to you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
goodbye.
Alex.